So, today's gonna be fun. As you can see by the title, we're gonna be doing something a little different to what I've done before. I'm gonna be sharing some fun little secrets. But first, energy drink time. Because I can't do it without that. Honestly, I can't do much without having an energy drink. Alright. It's so exciting how many people have followed. You can see I have 23 followers now, which is so cool because I am almost halfway there to affiliate, which is like my current goal right now. So, I thought this would be a good idea, and I know it's going to be a good idea. It's going to be a great idea. It's really good. It's really good. It's good. Not super excited about getting into this, but here we go. So, when I was 14 years old, I was with my friends at school and they were talking about this thing that they were doing, and I was like, what's that? And they were like, we're reading stories currently on an app called Wattpad. I was like, ooh, I like reading. That's so cool. I'll download, I'll open it. And so, yeah, Wattpad. So 14-year-old me was like, I'm getting this app. This is excellent. So I get the app and I decide that I don't just want to read stories. I want to become a Wattpad author. Whew. Thank you for hosting. I wanted to become a Wattpad author. So today we're going to be reading some of the stuff that I wrote when I was 14 years old. It's going to be great. So my username on Wattpad is pretty great. Hi Ralph, how's it going? I started off writing scary stories, so you know, it's almost Halloween time, so we got a few spooks in here. But I started off writing scary stories, so I wanted to make my username something so fitting. So I called myself Young is Free. Already I want to die. But yeah. Anyway, so let's go into Young is Free on Wattpad. I'll have to edit my Nightbot because I don't actually mind caps, so don't worry about that warning, it's fine. Okay. So I am here on my laptop on my Wattpad account and we're gonna start reading through some. So first off, I think to start us off, ease us into it, I'm going to actually do the last story I ever wrote. So I wrote this one, let's see what year this was. Because I think this one was not 14, so the title is a bit of a lie, but only for this one. The rest of them were written when I was 14. This one was written when I was 16. So we're going to start off with a choose your own adventure. So you guys let me know which options you want to pick, but we're going to read. So this one is called Would You Survive a Horror Movie? You know, because they're my favourite kind of movies. Which is still pretty true, but it's cringy when it's a 14-year-old. Thank you so much for following. Okay, so welcome to Would You Survive a Horror Movie? This is an interactive story which changes according to your choices. At the end of each chapter there'll be prompts, blah blah blah. We know how this works. Feel free to leave suggestions for the future. Alright, we're going to continue reading. Oh, chapter 1 is called Home Alone. Hi! so much for tipping. That is my first ever tip. Ah. I'm sorry. That is like, I'm distracted now. Okay, okay. So we're gonna keep going. So you let out a sigh. Your parents have left you at home while they go out to dinner and a movie. It's been a few hours since they left, and you are really bored. You roll out of your bed where you've been watching YouTube videos for the past hour and walk downstairs to find some sort of movie to watch to pass the time. Because, you know, every good 14-year-old only watches YouTube. Finding your favourite movie, you insert it. This was before Netflix. So I'm not that old. Like, I'm only 20 now. But you insert your movie. So we're watching a DVD. No Netflix. None of that. So finding your favourite movie, you insert it and go to the kitchen to prepare some microwave popcorn while the movie loads. The movie loads? This is like from a whole nother time period, even though it's like, what, like 6 years ago? Okay. You consider leaving the doors unlocked as you live in a pretty safe neighbourhood, but you remember all the warnings your mother gave you as a child, so go and lock them anyway. You walk back to the microwave and cook the popcorn. When it's done, you return to the lounge room and press play on the movie. Around 10 minutes into the movie, you pause it to get a drink. As you are walking to the kitchen, you hear faint footsteps in the next room. Passing it off as a trick of your overreactive mind, you continue on to the kitchen and fill your drink. Checking the time, you notice it's 9:20. Your parents won't be around for a good few hours yet. As you return to the lounge, you hear footsteps again. This time, you're sure you're not hearing things. You feel as though you are faced with 3 choices. Ignore the noises. After all, you might just be imagining things. Sneak out the back door, or hide. So put that number in chat. Which one should we do? Should we continue watching, sneak out the back door, or hide? I don't actually remember what these options lead to, so any option is a good one. Just like elevator music now. Doo, doo, doo. Two. Right, we're going number 2. Sneak out the back door. So now we go to chapter 3. I don't know how do I skip chapters? This has been so long since I've been on Wattpad. Right, here we are. Sneaking out the back door. Let's go. You slowly back into the kitchen, making note of every creak and groan of the house. You slowly open the back door, making a special effort not to make a sound. The cold night air causes you to shiver. You look around you, unsure of what to do. You could run into the woods, hide from the noise you thought you heard, run to the neighbour's house and borrow their phone. You roll your eyes. Maybe you're just imagining things. Maybe you should go back and finish watching the movie. So, here are the 3 options this time. You can run to the woods, go to the neighbour's house, or continue watching the movie. Even though I mentioned here you could also hide, but apparently I didn't put that option in. So run to the woods, run to the neighbours, or continue watching. Movie? You want to continue watching? Yeah, let's go. Let's go back. Okay, you decide to continue watching the movie. Your imagination is always overactive when your parents are gone. You sit and enjoy your movie, laughing at all the parts you always do. You sit and enjoy your movie laughing at... Okay, I said it again. Don't mind that. And crying when your favourite character dies, even though you've seen this movie at least 7 times before. As the end credits roll, you reach for the remote and switch off the television. You walk upstairs to your bedroom and prepare for bed. You want to get a bit of sleep before your parents return. You get in your pajamas, brush your teeth, and crawl under your covers. After you're comfortable, you pick up your phone and check the latest memes before you go to sleep. You check the latest memes before you go to sleep. You fall into a deep sleep. You are so out cold that you do not hear the soft footsteps that ascend the stairs. You don't hear the creak of your doorknob turning and the low groan of your door opening. You don't hear the footsteps stop next to your bed. And you don't know what's hit you when the knife finds its mark in your neck. Oh, we're dead. Alright, so I'm gonna go back to where we were before. Pretend that didn't happen. So let's run to the woods or run to the neighbour's house. One or two. If we die again, I'll move on to a different story, but let's see how far we can get. I don't even think as a 14-year-old, I myself looked at the latest memes before I went to bed. Okay, number 2. So we are going to run to the neighbour's house. Alright. You decide that being around humans is the safest possible option right now and begin to run to your neighbour's house. A light is on in their window, so you assume that they're home. Before you knock on the door, you look back towards your house. You see a figure making its way through your house, their shadow passing the windows, getting closer and closer to the front door. Panic fills you. They know you've left the house and they're coming. You look around, struggling with this decision of what to do. Is there time to knock? Should you just keep running? You decide that whatever you do, you better do it fast, because you hear the sound of your front door creaking open. There's bears and werewolves in the woods. So, we're at the neighbour's house. We can either knock on the door or keep running. Take your pick. 1, knock on the door. 2, keep running. John lives in the woods. You don't want to come across John. Any Johns in the woods, they're probably murderers. So, run. So we're gonna keep running. Okay. I completely just I do not remember. Yeah, everyone's saying run. Cool, we're running. So stumbling forward a little further, he turns to look at you. You start running out of the neighbour's driveway and down the street. You run as far as you can, not even stopping to look behind you, although you know he's still coming. Adrenaline pushes you on as you run through the street town, trying to reach the main road. You turn down an alley, trying to throw off your pursuer. You weave through the dark buildings until you emerge on another street. In the distance, you see a dark figure standing near what looks to be a car. You begin running towards them. This could be your chance to survive. You continue running towards the figure till a small seed of fear starts burrowing into your mind. What if it's him? What if you're not safe? You look around for other possible options, but all you can do is run to another house and try knocking there. You stand trying to make a decision before the distant sounds of footsteps get closer. So we can run towards the person at the car, go to the nearest house, or steal the car. I don't know if I've ever seen someone steal a car in a horror movie, so I don't know where I was going with this, but run, house, or stealing a car. It is up to you guys. Steal? Yeah, that's exactly what I was leaning towards too, so we're gonna steal the car. We're gonna steal that car. Okay. You look up ahead. That person could be dangerous. You decide to sneak up with them from them on the other side of the road and see if the car is running. As you approach them, you can see that the person is a man who is preoccupied with a phone call. You start to sneak in the shadows towards the car and the familiar hum of a running engine. You look back to the distance and see that your attacker is rounding the corner. You hurriedly sneak up to the car and hope that he doesn't see you. At last, you reach the car and you jump in, immediately pulling it into gear and driving away. You look into the rearview mirror. A man who is on the phone is yelling and running after the car. He doesn't see what's coming and falls to the ground with a knife sticking out of his back. The killer stands above him, waving at you, and you drive away. So now there's only one option, which is go to the police station. I'm pretty sure we may have survived. Hopefully it ain't a manual. I think because this was when I was 16, I actually did my driver's on a manual, so you throw it into gear. I think that's a reference to the fact that he actually, was in a manual. Is he wearing honeycomb pants? Oh, okay. That won't make sense to most people, but I have a lot of bad dreams, and one bad dream I had around that age actually was that a man was chasing me down the road as I was driving, and he was wearing pants made out of honeycomb, like not the candy, not the delicious stuff, but like actual hexagons of honeycomb, and it was like dripping with honey. And for some reason that dream terrified me so much, and I don't understand why. And so now my entire family mocks me for being scared of a man in a dark road with honeycomb pants. But to be fair, if you saw a guy dripping with honey chasing you down a road, surely you'd be a little scared. Like, my dad's teaching me manual and you're pretty sure you give. That's great! I haven't driven manual in a while because the car I currently have is not a manual. But yeah. So, beware of honeycomb pants. I mean, if you just joined, that sentence isn't going to make sense, but it's good advice. Anyway, we're at the police station. You have never been more relieved and begin to cry with joy as you run up the stairs and into the police station. You blurt out your story with tears streaming down your face. A kind-faced policewoman hushes you and brings you into a private room with two other policemen. They listen to your story, recording every word and asking you questions about your experiences. I don't know if this is accurate because I've never been arrested or had to be questioned, so take my 16-year-old word for it. Might be what happens. They listen to your story, recording every word and asking you questions about your experience. You answer everything, grateful for the help and happy to be alive, wondering how things may have been different if you made other decisions. They tell you they've already sent out cars and helicopters and are looking for your attacker as you speak. They decide you are safest if you stay there, and so lead you up to a room where a makeshift bed has been set up. They bring you a warm cup of cocoa and you snuggle safely into the small room. And, I think we survived, guys. Okay. A few days pass and they still haven't found the attacker. You switch off the news with a sigh, hoping that the hotel you and your parents were staying at was safe enough. Your father comes into the room. They still haven't found him. Oh no, sorry, that's you, not your father. Never mind. They still haven't found him, you say, shifting in your seat. They will, he says, giving you a reassuring pat. These things take time. You get in your pajamas and get in your bed, hoping that a new day will bring new developments in your case. In the middle of the night, you wake up to a sound of what you assume is dripping and venture into the bathroom to check the taps. When you get into the bathroom, you realize the sound wasn't coming from there. You walk back to the main room, up to your bedroom window. The sound is tapping. You rip open the curtains and let out a loud scream and come face to face with a masked killer. Woo! We made it to the sequel. And that's where the book ends. Great cliffhanger. So that was a great warm-up story. Now we're going to get into the real cringe stuff, which is worse. I do promise that. I left my water over there, so yeah. Right. So now I'm going to move to a book called Chills. This is not a chapter book. I did write one of those, and it is perhaps the worst thing ever. But it's gonna come after this one. There's actually a book here that I wrote where there's kissing, and as a 14-year-old who'd never been kissed, it is so good, but okay. So we're reading Chills. There's 48 parts, so totally not going to read them all. In the Womb. There's a story called In the Womb. I don't know, remember what this is. I just remember at 14, people thought my stories were really good, and that, like, we'd sit around at parties and they'd be like, hey, can you read some of your stories? I'd get out my Wattpad and be like, yes, I can. But, you know, they're good for 14-year-olds, I suppose, so hopefully this one's good. So you've heard about those people who eat their twins in the womb? I'm one of those. No, not the one who ate my twin. No, I'm the one who was eaten. Imagine seeing through someone else's eyes, not being able to have any control. You're stuck in the emotional turmoil of being trapped in a body that's not yours. Sorry, apparently I'm incapable of using punctuation. You hear them talk. You see them make an absolute fool of themselves, knowing that you yourself could have done a better job if you had a chance at life. But they stole your body. You were not allowed to live, just to watch and wait. Sometimes if you concentrate really hard, you can cause twitches, but that's about the extent of your capabilities. But I have recently discovered something. Sometimes I can cause thoughts. That little voice that tells you to jump when you're high up, that's me. That little voice that says you're nothing, that's me. Now I just thought I'd warn you. Enjoy yourself while you can, because I'm about to make your life hell. I thought that was, like, okay, now I've read it, I actually do remember writing that one. And at the time, I thought, oh, I'm so clever. There we go. There's a whole bunch of, like, games I made up where, like, you know, like, if you do, like, Bloody Mary or something, you stand in front of the mirror, say your name 3 times, that's 3 times, and then she'll appear. So I made up a bunch, like, Robert Winslow. Let's see. So, I just made these things up because people liked reading about spooky games at the time, and I was like, heh. So Robert Winslow was once in love with a beautiful woman, but she did not love him back because of the rippling scars that ran down his face from when he was younger and was beaten by his father. If that's not just the edgiest thing that's ever, like, been said. Have to go, have a wonderful day. Hope you have a good day too, bye. Thanks for coming. She found him ugly, repulsive to look at. He tried to make himself beautiful by all methods, even ones which would be considered far less moral than most. One day, a man came knocking at his house, saying he had a proposition. He said that he was once in the same situation and was willing to help. All it took was a little game. Best of 3. Winslow lost the game, his love, and his life, all in one afternoon. So, that's the lead up of the story. Doesn't make much sense, if I'm perfectly honest. I don't know where I was going with it. But this is how to play the game. That's completely fake and I made up myself. And so, how to play. Place 3 pieces of paper on the floor in front of you, ruled as if you were playing tic-tac-toe, noughts and crosses. Number 2, say, I want to play a game 17 times. Grab a pencil and draw an O. Say, I'm ready to play 3 times. All these numbers are just arbitrary. I'm like, number generator. That many. A cross should appear. Take turns playing and don't lose. So we're just playing noughts and crosses 3 times. Okay. The game is best of 3. Don't loose. It says loose because I can't spell. If you win, you will win the heart of any desired person. If you lose, you will either get scars like Robert's or lose your life, depending on his mood that day. Once you finish, burn the paper, if you win. If you don't, he could kill you anyway. Be warned that he has years of practice and is very hard to beat. I love getting into my 14-year-old stories because I can't spell at all. We're going to read another story now because, let's be honest, games are kind of boring. Oh, I wrote a chain letter as well. That's great. Let me see. Oh, I wrote so many chain letters. I think I just wanted shares. Okay. Oh, there's one called Sooner Than You Think. Oh, this comes with an author's note. More sad than scary. I wrote this story a while ago and I've wanted to share it, even though it's not a scary story like the rest of these. It's more historical fiction, I guess. Please treat this Please treat this story with respect, though it's more about a sensitive topic. What is this? I don't want to... What is this? Ha! Yeah, we're not reading that. That. Like, it's not bad, but I'm not reading a story from a point of view from a Jew in Germany. Let's just say that. If you don't know, I study history, and I was obsessed with all things history, and so that was what I was learning in school at the time. Would you read other people's stories? I actually did. I had a book review, so I would go around, and I don't know what people actually requested their books to be like reviewed by me. They'd be like, send me a message and be like, hey, can you request my book for your reviews? And I'm like, hey, I can do that. And so there's actually a book on here where I've like reviewed people's books. I read through them, say like what it's about, if it was any good, and then put like content warnings and be like, there is swearing in this, or like, and then I give it a rating and say like what age range it would best be for. So yeah, people requested my 14-year-old self to review their stories. Some of them were just darn awful. Alright, there's another. Dr. Parks. I'll pay you another $1 to read mine. Oh, go for it. Send me a link to your story. Alright, Dr. Parks. I winced as I bit down on the wrong side momentarily, forgetting about the annoying hole in my tooth. I finished off the rest of my sandwich, the best I could, before heading off to my 1 o'clock dentist appointment. Nerves raced through me as I sat fidgeting in the waiting room. I had never been great at the dentist, but it made it worse that I had moved to a new state and never met the guy before. May caliente? What? Why? May caliente. Fair enough. Do it if it's clean. I'll read a book. Yeah, send me a link. Like, you can send it on my Discord. You can DM me on Instagram. Just send me a link to your book, man. I will read it. May caliente? The dentist nurse asked as she emerged out of one of the rooms. Yes, that's me, I said, standing up ready to follow her. Dr. Parks will see you now, she said, motioning for me to follow her. I walked along the white hallway, peering into the rooms as I went along, shivering at the sound of drills buzzing. I walked behind the nurse into the room I was to be treated in. I let out a breath. There was nothing to worry about. It was almost exactly like the one I used to go to. A man who I assumed was Dr. Parks walked in. He gave me an uneasy feeling as he loomed over me. His dark, intense eyes met mine. Have a seat, Miss Caliente, he said in a monotone voice, almost staring me down. I lowered myself into the chair and the nurse started to put the glasses and bib on me. So, we are getting a filling today, he said, glancing at his computer. Which side is the tooth? It's left side up the top, I said, pointing to the area. Fun fact, I actually did have a filling that side, in that spot. He lowered the chair and prepared to start giving me a filling. I mentally prepared myself for the needle and squeezed my eyes shut when it came time to inject it. I felt the numbness seize not only my mouth but my entire body. My eyes shifted, but I couldn't move. I tried to call out, but no sound escaped my lips. He does sound like a pretty terrible doctor. She's got some nice teeth, Dr. Parks said, nodding at the nurse. They'll make some nice dentures, she replied with a nod. Fear overtook me as he pulled out a large set of pliers. I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the shine of the pliers. My blank, emotionless face stared back at me. I internally screamed with every tooth he pulled out. The wild look in his eyes terrified me, and I was powerless against anything he did to me. Last one, he said as he wrenched the pliers towards him. The nurse swooped in and started sucking up the blood from that tooth. Don't bother, he said as he picked up a needle. This one filled with a straw-coloured liquid. We're done with her now. A single tear slipped out of my eye as he jammed the needle into my neck. I felt the tear roll down as everything faded to black. Oh, this one's got an author's note too. I know this is a kind of a strange one, but it was inspired by my dentist visit today. Hope you enjoy. I'd just like to say my dentist has never pulled my teeth out and killed me. So I don't know how this was inspired by my dentist visit. I'm not scared of dentists, but nice. I don't know anybody who says one of those doctors who experiment on people. Yeah, probably. Probably. So let me just... Okay, I'm going to move away from the short stories now because it's kind of boring. So I'll send you my Wattpad and you can choose because I'm not sure what's on there. Go for it. Alright, next up, I'm going to read what I was most proud of at 14. This story was the pinnacle. Even though Chills, the book of short scary stories, was like trending for some time, it was like at the moment, it's not very good anymore. It's number 283 in horror stories. But if we go, where is it? Oh yes, my book called Innocent Games. Now, this one is the most cringy. I'm just warning you now that this one's gonna be hard to read. See, I thought this was amazing. This is number 77 in horror stories, so it can't be that bad, but it's great. It's great. We're gonna read it. We're gonna have fun. Okay. So, I'm at the end because why? I don't know. Part 1. Alright. So the main characters in this story are called Holly and Ivy because I started writing this around Christmas time and had just listened to the song The Holly and the Ivy. I don't know the name of the song, but it goes like The Holly and the Ivy. So, you can see that I'm very inspired by everything that's around me. Okay, so this is from Ivy's point of view. And this is chapter 1, 10 chairs. After what's the eye-popping lady? See, I didn't actually write the eye-popping lady. So yeah, I used to tell my little brother scary stories when he was a kid, and then I'd always get in trouble because he'd have nightmares. But I did not write that one. So it's not on my Wattpad, and I don't really remember it. But maybe I'll do like a reading spooky stories stream, like in a few weeks or like Halloweenish time. So this is part 1. It's called 10 Chairs. I woke up. It was dark, pitch black. I ran my hand along the floor, cold, gritty cement. It must be dirty. As I tried to sit up, pain erupted from my right temple and my head started spinning. Pushing back the pain and nausea, I crawled as far as I could in one direction, feeling along as I went. I didn't go far before my hand met a cold wall, more hard cement. I didn't know how long I lay there. It could have been hours, days even. All I knew was hunger. It consumed me. I lay there running through my memories, trying to recall how I came to be there, but I couldn't work it out. I grasped onto the few memories that remain, my childhood home, the smiling faces of my parents, and my name, Ivy. Ivy Moore. The sound of the man thumping down the stairs. Okay. There's a man. Okay. The sound of the man thumping down the stairs towards my room pulled me from my thoughts. Food was shoved through the thin flap at the bottom of the thick steel door, followed by a bottle of water. It became so much more bearable when I found the light switch and started receiving food. Screaming for help doesn't work. It always resulted in some sort of gas being released and me waking up again, who knows how long later. I began to eat my food, but stopped at the sound of screaming, drawing closer and closer. Another door somewhere else closed with a crunch, and the sounds of fists against a metal door echoed outside my room. The screaming continued for several minutes before it suddenly died down. I guessed they had received their first dose of that awful gas, the gas that teaches you to behave. I'm not sure how many people are down here, but it's not the first time I'd heard screaming and the clang of a metal door. The sound of footsteps storming towards my door caused me to back into the corner of the room, only to emerge when I saw something being roughly shoved under my door. I crawled towards it and slowly picked it up. It was a dress, a white, knee-length, frilly dress. I threw it away, disgusted. as if I was gonna wear what some psychopath was giving me. I sat in the corner of the room, throwing a pebble against the wall until I heard doors opening and closing. Finally heard the groan of my door being opened. A man entered the room and came towards me. Rage fills his eyes as he looked at me. Tense, doing well. Before I could move, he lifted me up by my hair and threw me across the room. I pushed back the tears that threatened to escape. "How dare you," he snarled, lifting me up and pinning me to the wall. "After all I did." "Besides kidnap me, what have you done for me?" I snapped before spitting in his face. My comment fueled his anger, and he slapped me hard on the face. "Put it on," he said, motioning to the dress on the floor. Defeated, I picked up the dress and began peeling off my filthy clothes that I'd been wearing since arrival and slipped the cool fabric over my head, while his sick, perverted eyes watched. "Isn't that better?" he said in a sing-song voice while wrapping his cold fingers around my arm, leading me out of the room. We walked down a brightly lit hall plus many doors like mine, all of which were open, and through a large door at the end of the hall. As my eyes adjusted to the dim lighting, I saw 10 chairs in a circle facing each other, 9 of which were full, all girls, and an empty one, which I assumed was mine. The man strapped me roughly into the chair and then walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. As I looked around the circle, I saw faces filled with fear. Silence filled the room until a few seats up next to me, a girl spoke up. "Does anyone know what's going on?" she said. Everyone shook their heads. "I can't take this much longer," cried another girl. "Maybe we can overpower him. Maybe we can make it out," I said, feeling slightly uncomfortable as all gazes fell on me. "I don't know about the rest of you, but I think I could. By the looks of things, we're all weak from food and lack of sunlight, honestly." The girl next to me trailed off as the door burst open, and the man came sauntering in to the middle of the circle. "You should all be honored to be here," he boomed, motioning to all of us in turn. One girl scoffed, but he ignored it and continued. "One of you gets to leave here. The rest don't," he said with a sick gleam in his eye. He turned towards the girl who scoffed at him. "I suggest we play a little game. Do you like games?" She stayed silent. "Do you like games?" he screamed at her, his fist colliding with her cheek, spit flying out of his vile mouth. Yes, she stammered, choking back tears. I felt sorry for her, but I was secretly glad it wasn't me. "Yes, sir!" he screamed, slapping her across the cheek. "Yes, sir," she whispered, her head hung low in fear. "One rule," he says, backing towards the door. "Loser dies." I love games. Oh no! Yeah, let's play a game. And that's the end of chapter 1. Let's move on. Chapter 2, we're getting to our first game. Hi! This chapter is called Hide and Seek. I'm walking down a street. The warm summer sun is shining on my face and the wind whistles through the trees. My hair moves gently in the breeze and a feeling of peace washes over me. I keep walking on the seemingly never-ending street. I have to get home for dinner on time. My parents are expecting me. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a large black van emerge from a side street. Looking around the room, I saw chairs. Chairs filled with girls. I guess that I drifted off at some point while we were waiting for the man to return. I was not the only one. All of the other girls were in the room, still asleep. All but one. The girl who scoffed at the man yesterday and got a beating was awake. She was concentrating on the bindings that held her wrist, testing the strength and trying to slip her hands out. "Do you think it's possible?" I whispered. She jumped in her seat, startled by my words, and focused her gaze on me. "It has to be. We can't stay here," she whispered back. "I agree with you, with the whole needing to escape thing. I think we can do it. It may just take some time. We can't all turn against each other for the chance to escape. That's what he wants. Even if the others don't want to help, we will still be stronger together than alone," I said. "I'm Holly," she said, smiling at me. "Ivy," I said with a grin, and for the first time in months, a spark of hope was ignited in me. Woo! Holly and Ivy are together at last. "I wonder if they're still looking," Holly said, gazing off into the distance. We had been talking for ages about our families, lives, hopes, secrets. It was almost as if we were old friends. We just instantly clicked with each other. Every sentence, every word, every glance between us felt more and more assured that we could escape, and escape together. I began, but was stopped by the grinding of the metal door being opened. "Rise and shine, ladies," the man yelled, while skipping rather awkwardly into the room. The rest of the girls opened their eyes groggily. Some, which I guess were newer ones, woke with panicked looks on their faces, which were replaced with looks of defeat when the realization of where they were struck them. "Who's ready to have some fun?" he said, grinning at us all. Okay. "I hope you all had a good sleep. It's a big day today. Game 1. One of my favorites." Motioning to one of the girls, he said, "Can you guess?" She shook her head. "I said guess, you little..." I yelled out the first game that came to mind, trying to save her from beating. "Hide and seek!" The man turned slowly towards me, a deadly smile plastered on his lips. "Correct," he said, gesturing towards the wall behind me. "Ha! Convenient." I awkwardly looked behind me, trying to catch a glimpse of what he was motioning to. Lights now lit up the wall, and on the wall there were metal doors, 9 of them, one for every game. "Once I undo you all and step behind the first door, you have 100 seconds to hide. First one found," he cut his phrase with a laugh, "loses," because I still can't spell losers yet. "The first one found loses." "What is behind the door?" asked the girl with red hair. The man turned slowly towards her and smiled. "You'll find out." He skipped over to the first metal door, and the grinding noise filled the room. Walking over to each of us in turn, we were untied and led at gunpoint towards the door. Anyone who resisted or tried to attack him was beaten. Holly and I huddled together, waiting for the last few girls to be untied. Once everyone was timidly standing in the doorway, he spoke. "Ready, set, go." Turning around, all of us ran desperately into the hall, trying to find a decent spot. The metal door was like the front door of a house. There were rooms, furniture, an upstairs, food, bathrooms. The only thing that was out of place was the windows. They were painted on. Some of the girls ran directly to the pantry, gorging themselves with food or grabbing as much as they could before running off to find a spot. Others ran to the bathrooms to quickly use them. The once-a-day bathroom break obviously wasn't enough. I ran beside Holly up the stairs past all of the distractions. We renamed... What? I'm sorry. We renamed to the end of the hall. I don't even know what I was meant to say. We renamed to the end of the hall and found 2 bedrooms opposite each other. We split up after wishing each other luck. I ran into the left bedroom and she ran into the right. The room I ran into was supposed to be a little girl's room. There was a small pink bed, teddies neatly on the floor, and the walls were pink and white candy striped. There were a few places to hide, and time was running out. I ran over to the blanket box at the end of the bed. All that was inside was a blanket. Perfect, I thought. I climbed inside and curled up under the blanket, trying to make it look as flat as possible. Listening closely, I could hear sounds coming from elsewhere in the house, and movement outside of my room. I lay still, trying to calm my breathing and slowly slow my heart rate, while the booming voice of the man rang out, echoing in every corner of every room. Ready or not, here I come. Next part. Part 3. Found you. Okay. Ready or not, here I come. Oh, this is Holly's point of view, by the way. Forgot that. We're switching point of views. Ready or not, here I come. His voice is sickening. I fix my hair so it can't be seen dangling down from under the bed. I was so lucky to find out that underneath of the bed was completely hollow apart from metal beams, which thank goodness were strong enough to hold my weight. He is deranged, I thought, clinging to the metal beams. I listened out for any sign of life outside the room. Nearby, I heard a small whimper. If they give me away, I swear. I heard faint footsteps drawing closer. Give me a cheap, ladies, he said. Silence met him. We all knew the penalty for being found. His footsteps stopped outside the room I was hidden in. Hidden in the shadows, I could see wisps of dark hair at the side of the bed. I held back a gasp. He was looking under the bed. He let out a sigh and stood back up. I heard his footsteps leave the room and almost cried with joy. He didn't find me. The joy didn't last long. From the room across mine, I heard something that made my stomach turn. Found you, his voice rang out. The scream that followed confirmed that he had found someone. Panic filled me as I realized who was in that room. It was Ivy. Ivy's point of view. He was right outside where I was hiding. I could hear his heavy breathing. Found you? It was so close. Was it me? There was a piercing scream. I let out the breath that I had been holding. It wasn't me. Silly girl hiding in a closet, he laughed. You lose. What does that mean? She asked, her voice cracking. He let out another laugh. You know exactly what that means. The man stopped talking to her and yelled, Come out, ladies, the game is over. The girl who had been found started hysterically crying. I waited to hear the sound of moving, and when I did, I emerged from my hiding place. We were all led back down to the room and one by one strapped into our chairs. Nobody resisted this time. We were all too scared to process what was going on. Once we were all strapped in, we saw that one girl was missing. And it wasn't the one who lost. Ah, he yelled as he too noticed the empty chair, and he stormed back through the door. Holly and I exchanged glances. I was so glad she was alive. She was too, by the way she hugged me when she emerged. Thank you for tipping again. I will get onto your stories in a minute, okay? Now you're all here, he said, glaring at the red-headed girl. Let's begin. He walked towards the chair that held the losing girl. Still can't spell losing. He walked towards the chair that held the losing girl and dragged it with ease to the middle of the circle. I'm sorry, Nicole, he whispered as he pulled the gun out from his waistband and raised it to her head. Nicole started screaming, hysterically crying for help and begging to be spared. Unfazed, he placed a finger on the trigger and pulled. Her screams were silenced as blood was propelled out of the back of her head, leaving a deep red stain in the floor. Blood poured out of the wound on her head, puddling on the floor. The man dragged her chair back to its position and unstrapped her body, throwing it over his shoulder, and walked out. Oh, I can't believe I wrote this. The edge. Like, I know 14-year-olds think they're all edgy, but like, that is an edgelord right there. Like, calm down, love. Chill. Holly sat with her head bowed. At first I thought she was crying, but as she met my gaze, I saw no tears, only fury, raw, hard anger. This can't be happening. We have to... She shouted, but was interrupted by the girl next to me. No, she yelled. If we try to pull anything, he'll kill more of us. He'll kill more of us anyway, even if we don't play along. Don't pretend you didn't see what happened today, the girl next to Holly piped in. Not more than necessary, the first girl responded. You call that? Holly gestured to the puddle of blood. Necessary? Edgy. Yeah. I looked back over to Holly, who was almost bursting with anger. She looked at me and shook her head at the unbelievable scene that had just taken place. We need to get out, she mouthed to me after making sure no one was looking our way. I nodded in agreement and mouthed back, we need a plan. Holly looked off into the distance with a thoughtful look on her face. She was hopefully formulating a plan because, at this point, escape seemed impossible. Ooh, round 2. How many chapters are here? Oh, we're like almost halfway there. I'll keep going then. This is Holly. I jiggled my hands in the bonds that held me. If only I could get out. I could undo everyone. We could all get out. It was no use. No amount of pulling and thrashing was ever going to free me. I had to find another way out. Can't sleep either? Ivy asked me with a sad smile on her face. Nope, I replied. All I can think of is getting out of here. Me too, she whispered back. Do you think we have a chance? Piped in another voice. If we have a plan, answered Ivy. What's your name? She asked. Catherine, the voice responded. Looking around, I saw it came from the red-headed girl. I'm Ivy. That's Holly, Ivy said, mentioning her head towards me. I think it's supposed to say motioning. Just ignore that. And we're making it out alive. How can you be so sure? Catherine asked. We have no option. We can't let him kill us. The next game began after most of the girls were awake. The disgusting pig waltzed into the room with a sickening smile plastered on his face. Ready for round 2, ladies? He asked excitedly, like this whole thing was a fun little joke. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. "Why so down?" he said with a giggle. "Let's play a fun little game to cheer you up." His comment made me want to rip his beady little eyes out. Once again, we were all led by gunpoint out of our chairs to the second door. Behind the second door was a large room with white walls and a concrete floor. In the center of the room were 8 chairs. The psycho led the first few girls in and seated them along the wall. "I like our second game," he said, clapping his hands. "It's one of my favorite, musical chairs." He walked towards the chairs and proceeded to explain the game. "Each round will have a winner. Each winner will not participate in any other rounds for this game. They'll be immune to death. We'll work our way down to 2 players. And, well, you know what happens after that. Loser dies." He motioned to all of us to stand and gave his next instruction. "Round 1, start dancing." We all stood and began half-heartedly dancing while he played some music. The music he played was a continuous low, droning note, played by what might have been a violin, but was occasionally covered by sobs and plead for help. It was sickening. Each round, when the music stopped, one of the girls was temporarily out. Ivy got out, worryingly quickly. Soon it was just me and that loudmouth who thinks that death is necessary. "Just Brienne and Holly left, I see. I would not have guessed that you two would get this far so quickly," he said as a man removed a chair for the next round. As he walked back to the music, Brienne stared me down, her eyes never leaving me as she danced awkwardly around the chairs. He sounds like that evil priest in V for Vendetta. I haven't seen that, actually. So, we're switching to Ivy. Brienne eyed Holly off as she danced around the chairs. The air was tense and silent as we all waited for the music to stop. Suddenly, the music stopped and Holly sprinted towards the chair, planting herself in it. "She's won!" I thought too soon. Brienne ran up to her and pushed her out of the chair. "I think round 1 has a winner," announced the man, clapping. "Congratulations, Brienne." Hollywood face turned bright red. Hollywood face turned bright red. She was fuming with anger. "Holly got there first," the red-haired girl protested. The man turned towards her and rolled his eyes. "But she's no longer on the chair. Fair's fair," he replied. Holly's hair fell in front of her eyes as she got up. She walked back towards the rest of us with stormy eyes and a clenched jaw. The game was about to get a whole lot harder. Ooh, we got 2 down, 8 to go is the next chapter. This is Holly. I could hear the grunts and screams of desperation from the other room. I sat strapped in my chair, trying to ignore the smug look on Brienne's face. After I won the second round, thankfully, I was stronger than I looked. I was led at gunpoint back to the main room and strapped back in my chair, forced to be alone in the same room as her. Time went by astonishingly slowly, and the winner of each round was led in and strapped into the chairs. Each time, I looked around them with anticipation. Each time. It was not Ivy. Eventually, there were only 3 empty chairs. The dead girls, Ivy's, and a girl who I did not know the name of. My hands began to shake as the music for the last round began. Catherine shot me a sympathetic look, knowing that I could be about to lose my closest friend here. The music stopped. I heard a scuffle. The man's sick, booming laughter confirmed it. We had a loser! Not a loser! Ah! I hate it when we have a loser. I squeezed my eyes shut, expecting the worst. "Ivy," said the man. "Take a seat." I opened my eyes and looked at Ivy. She was covered in scratches and was bleeding from most of them, but she was okay. She was not the one hysterically crying, pleading for the man to let her go. Relief washed over me, but was quickly filled with guilt. How could I be happy when someone's about to die? Her death was the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen. The man strapped her into a chair and dragged her to the middle of the circle before dousing her in gasoline and striking a match. "Goodbye, Emily," he whispered with a giggle as he dropped the match into her lap. Her panicked, anguished screams will haunt me forever. Later, when the fire had died down, he came back for the charred remains of her corpse, and had to reposition her in the chair in our circle. Now, what? Oh, I had to reposition her chair. The corpse is gone. Cool. Now there were only 2 empty chairs, 1 stained with blood and 1 burned. 2 down, 8 to go. And see, I tried to switch up the deaths here. It's good stuff. Now we're back to Ivy. Tears slipped out of my eyes. I was the one who won. I beat her. I was the reason she was dead. She died so horribly, I couldn't even watch. I squeezed my eyes shut, but I could still hear her scream in pain. I could still smell the burning flesh. I could still feel the guilt that ripped my heart in its whole hand. Well, this man caused this. I was the one who killed her. Her family would never see her again. Because of me. We needed to make a plan, and we needed to make it soon. This had to stop. I just realised an even edgier thing. Except for Brienne, because I never actually knew a Brienne, a lot of the names were people that I knew in real life. What's really bad is that the ones that survived were people I liked. The ones that died were people that I didn't like from school. Oh, my 14-year-old self. A horrible, horrible person. Oh gosh. Right, moving on. Let's forget about that, and don't snitch to anyone I went to school with. And if you're from my school, just pretend that if you hear your name, it's not you. So edgy. No one slept well that night. Well, no one except Brienne. Everyone was too unsettled to rest. Between sobs, we all had a quiet conversation. I learnt the names of the 4 girls I didn't know yet. There was Molly, who was thin and had dark curly hair. She was walking home from school when she was taken. There was Layla, who had a kind face and striking eyes. She was walking her dog. There was Losers. Not the Losers. There was Hannah. She was shorter than the rest of us and spoke very little. The last thing she remembers is getting in a taxi. And there was Zoe. She had blonde hair and blue eyes, and like me, she could not remember how or when she was taken. Holly said she was taken while she was jogging, and Catherine said she was kidnapped at a party. So many people must be looking for us. Will they ever find us? We can't go on like this, I said. We have to get out. How can we get out? He has a gun, and we're locked up, Zoe whispered. Besides, Layla added, how will we make a plan? He might be listening to us right now. The room might be bugged, she said, looking around the room with urgency and then back at us with panic look in her eyes. We have to risk that, said Holly gravely. Even so, we have to be prepared that there will be at least another game, maybe even 2, before we can do anything. Brienne will ruin anything if we try. We have to hide it from her, piped in Molly. Or maybe we'll have to get her out, spoke Hannah, who had been thoughtfully surveying the conversation for some time. As horrible that is, Holly noted, you might be right. We came up with every game we could think of and formulated a plan for each one, all ending in the same way. Eventually, we ran out of ideas and decided to wait until morning. No matter what, Brienne had to lose. We're moving from survivalists to straight up murderers now. Hey! Who's Brienne? We're in Ivy's point of view now. Good morning, ladies, the man said as he burst into the room with a huge smile plastered across his face. I'm so excited for today's game. It's a good one. Brienne snorted awake at a start with the noise. The man glanced over to her with an annoyed expression. Nice of you to join us, he said with a glare. Just for that, you can untie everyone. The man walked over to her and untied her before leaning on a wall and watching her untie the rest of us. While you're being untied, I'll explain the game. It's bull rush. I yell bull rush, you run to the other side. While you run, I try my best to get you with a knife. First person's drop loses. I looked over at Holly with a worried look. We hadn't planned for this. I have a plan, she mouthed to me. We'll all grab her and push her toward... I wasn't a murder review game show host, yes. A murder game show. What are you doing? The man screamed as Holly as he stormed towards her. I was just telling her that she's going to lose because she is hopeless. I mean, she has almost lost the last game, didn't she? Holly replied, feigning confidence. I guess that makes sense, he mumbled as he walked away. Holly mouthed the plan to the other girl every time the man looked away, but by the time we were all untied, everyone knew what to do. The man walked over to the third door and opened it. Turning towards us, he said, Don't bother. The fence is electric. I walked up the dimly lit staircase, puffing after the first 100 stairs. When I finally reached the top, I emerged to see the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. The outside. My bare feet squealed with pleasure at the feel of soft grass on my feet. The only thing that ruined the view was the massive metal fence trimmed with barbed wire that surrounded us. Switching over to Holly now. This could be our way out, I thought as I glanced across the field. Looking further, I noticed we were out in the country. I could see nothing for miles except fields and rolling hills. No one would ever find us here. Let the game begin, shouted the man from the center of the field. We all exchanged nods and glances, knowing what we had to do. Bull rush, yelled the man with a jump. As if in slow motion, all of us lunged towards Brienne and grabbed onto her, and she threw her weight around, screaming to be let go and thrashing in our grasp. Guilt filled me as I thought about what we were about to do, but I forced myself to push on. Ho ho, banding together I see, laughed the man as we approached him. Very well, if that's how you want to play, he continued with a playful smile before he plunged the knife into her chest. Hi! We let go of her and stepped back as she fell to the ground. Looking me in the eyes, she spluttered her final words. I should have won. The man laughed and threw his head back. Before he knew what hit him, Molly pulled the knife out of Brienne and rammed it into the man's side. The smile dropped from his face, and his hand lashed out and struck Molly in the cheek. How dare you! He spat. Get back to your chairs, he said, clutching his side. We all obeyed and went back downstairs, and one by one got strapped back in. The man hobbled out, turning towards the door. 3 days, he said. No games, no food, no water, no bathrooms, no visit from me. Enjoy your punishment. He turned away and slammed the door behind him. This is our chance, squealed Zoe. If we can manage to get out of our bonds, Layla said sadly, glancing down at her wrists. Moving to the next part. This part called Undone. I think we're almost out, guys. We're back to Holly. My eyes burned and my wrists were raw. I'd been trying all night to get out. I sucked in my stomach, ready to let out a sigh and felt the rope around my waist slip down slightly. I gasped. I was closer to getting out. Guys, I called to the other girls around me. My waist rope just slipped down. I leant forward, testing out the extent of my new reach. Bite the arm bonds off, yelled Molly excitedly. This could be our chance. The man may have made a silly mistake for himself. Come on, Holly, you're so close, Ivy whispered. I strained harder against the waist bonds, ignoring the strain from my stomach. My teeth finally claimed onto the rope. On my right arm, pulling and wiggling with all my strength, I managed to loosen the rope just enough. See, I know how to spell loose. Why can't I spell lose? Why do I think they're the same word? Anyway, I managed to loosen the rope just enough for my hand to slip out. I gasped with excitement. Zoe even started crying with joy. I used my hand to undo the rest of my bonds, followed by the bonds of the other girls. We hugged and cried. We were almost free. What do we do now? Asked Layla. We get the hell out of here, said Molly, pointing to the door of game number 3. Switching to Ivy now. I looked to Holly with admiration. We were so close to escaping, and she was the one who made it all possible. There would be no more games, no more deaths. We could make it home. It took the strength of both Holly and Molly to open the metal door, as well as me when we were closing the door behind us. I don't think I have ever run as fast as I ran up those stairs. We burst onto the oval and ran to the fence. Wait, yelled Molly, motioning for us to stop. The man was right. The fence is electric. Listen. I strained my ears and heard a faint buzzing of the electric fence. How are we going to get out? I asked, looking around for a solution. We dig, said Hannah, pointing at the ground. And fast, I said, as I first saw the few rays of sunlight begin to rise over the hill. 2 days left. It took us around 3 hours to carefully dig a ditch big enough for all of us to crawl through without touching the fence. I'll go first, Holly said, nodding to the rest of us. Then I'll be able to help anyone through who needs it. Laying on the grass, Holly began crawling towards the fence. I held my breath as she slowly crawled under. Finally, she reached the other side. We are so close, she said with tears in her eyes. Come on, guys, let's get out of here. One by one, we squirmed through the ditch, emerging on the other side. Both excitement and fear ripped through me as I had my first taste of freedom. Now, we get as far away as possible. Here's what you want, I'm what you need. The kidnapper? I don't want no kidnapper. Alright. We're switching to Holly now. My bare feet ached as we trudged through the fields. Before we left, we decided it was safest to avoid the road, in case the man left to get supplies, but stay close enough to signal a car if we needed to. My eyelids drooped and my whole body protested as I kept walking. The lack of sleep and exhaustion of the morning's running had finally caught up with me. I don't think I can keep going, Zoe said as her knees gave way beneath her. I looked back at her and nodded. Tomorrow will be another big day. We need to get some rest. Up there, Molly said, pointing to a large hill. We'll be able to see if anyone's coming from up there. Despite our aching legs, we all nodded and began walking up the hill. Huddled in the long grass, we made ourselves as comfortable as possible before falling into a deep sleep. Oh, we're switching to Catherine. Haven't heard from Catherine yet. Why do these girls have to make things difficult? They keep getting in my way. Things would have been so much easier if we all stayed. I would have won, and then I could have been with him forever. He would have wanted it that way too. All of these other girls are just distractions. Distractions. They're about to go away. I raised a large stone above my head. It was time to end the madness. Starting with you, I whispered, as I brought the stone down onto Hannah's skull. You had a dark mind. The school was worried. Yes, I wrote some of these in exams when we had creative writing. I'd write some of my scary stories, and the school was worried about me. This is Holly. I woke to a scream. Jumping from where I lay, I looked around. Hannah was gurgling on the floor. Her head was caved in and blood was pouring out of her. Damn, loving that murder. My jaw dropped open. Standing above her was Catherine, covered in blood, with a twisted smile plastered on her face. Rushing forward, I tackled her and pinned her to the ground. By now, the other girls were all awake. Help me hold her, I yelled, Help me hold her, I yelled at the starting bodies facing me. English. Excellent. My voice jolted them back into reality, and they rushed forward and grabbed onto her. I let go and picked up a sharp stone, slicing off the hem of my dress. Tie her up with this, I said as I handed the material to Zoe, who was standing behind Catherine. Zoe nodded and began to tie up her hands. Catherine whispered something incoherent. What did you say? I spat at her with glare. She lifted her head. Always getting in my way, she said slowly and deliberately as she stared at me. What are we going to do with her? Asked Molly as she looked down at the mutilated body that once was Hannah. Wow. Itchy. Right. Maybe we should kill her. She's killed one. Who says she won't kill more? Plus, she'll only slow us down, said Layla. We can't do that, said Ivy quietly. She needs help, just like us. We'll leave her here, Zoe said as she pulled on the bonds, making sure it would hold. No, Molly protested. She'll just go back and give us away before we have escaped. It would be better for us to just kill her. An argument broke out among the girls, voices overlapping as they struggled to make their point heard. Stop, I yelled. If we kill her, we'll be just as bad as him. I think we should take her with us. Molly nodded. We should start walking then. It's dark, but we have a long way to go. We stumbled down the hill with Catherine being held by Zoe and Layla. We walked on, occasionally stopping for bathroom breaks and switching controls of Catherine. I'm so hungry, Layla said after hours of walking. Hopefully we'll come across something soon, I said, peering into the distance. We continued walking in silence before something amazing came into view. An orchard. Moving to Ivy. Do you see that? I asked excitedly. Everyone nodded. They were speechless. Let's go, I yelled as I began to run towards the orchard. The other girls soon followed, Molly and Layla pulling Catherine behind them. Reaching the orchard, we all started crying with happiness. We were one step closer to being safe. I reached up above me and picked a bright red apple. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The other girls followed my lead and began picking and eating the apples. This is the best apple I've ever eaten, said Zoe, with her mouth full of apple. I held an apple up to Catherine's mouth and she slowly took a bite or gave me a glance that was almost sad. Holly raced through the trees. She had been off exploring, looking for a house. There, I saw, it's over, she puffed. What is it? We all asked, taking a breath. She slowed her breathing and collected herself. "There's a small house over there," she said, pointing in its direction. "We could get help." The girls started running in the direction that Holly pointed before I stopped them. "Wait," I yelled, causing them to stop and look at me. "We don't know if we can trust them." "I don't see why not," Zoe shrugged. "I guess we could just wait around a bit and scope it out," Layla said sadly. "Well," said Holly, straining to think, "there was an area under the house that we could hide in for a bit." "That's perfect," I said. "Then we could find out who these people really are." "What about Catherine?" Molly asked. "She'll probably make a noise." "Gag her," Holly said as she ripped off a length from her dress. Holly put the gag in Catherine's mouth, repositioning it till her cries of protest could no longer be heard. After Catherine was successfully gagged, we crept silently up the house and crawled into the dark space underneath. Footsteps thumped above us. People were definitely home. Thank you for following. Welcome to my stream. A booming laugh echoed out. "Thanks, Anne. I really care about my cousins. I'd hate not to find them. I really can't believe they ran off. I guess they never really liked me. They'd say all kinds of nasty lies about me to get away. It's really a shame." "I know that voice," I whispered to the other girls. "Of course, dear," said a female voice, who I assumed was Anne. "I'll let you know right away when I see them. What did you say? There were 9 of them?" 7. My aunt was a busy woman. 7. My aunt was a busy woman. The deep laugh rang out again. "Well, I'll be off." The footsteps trudged down the front steps till her legs were in view. "I know that voice too," Holly said. "That's the man." My aunt was a busy woman. Isn't it? As you can see, I'm an excellent author. You can, make me write a screenplay. Turn this into a movie Netflix. It'll be really good, I promise. We watched the legs of the man walk around the house until they were out of view, and sat in terrified silence until we heard the sound of a car pulling away and the woman's footsteps retreating back inside. "What are we going to do? He's letting everyone know to look out for us," Zoe whispered, running her hand through her matted hair. "Keep moving," Layla suggested. "Same guy for all 7? Oh, I don't know. I didn't get that far into the backstory of the 7 kids. You'd have to ask the kidnapper, I suppose. Go to her and hope she believes us, Molly said, shrugging her shoulders. "One of us could ask for directions, say our car is broken down or something," I whispered. The others nodded their heads slowly, no doubt thinking of the risks the plan involved. "I'll go," Molly said, breaking the silence. Without waiting for a reply, she began to crawl out from under the house. We sat in hopeful and terrified silence as we listened to the soft sounds of her footsteps ascend the front stairs. "My family's car has broken down a little way down the road, and I was wondering if you can point me in the direction of the nearest town." "Sure thing," the woman's voice replied after a moment of silence. "I have a map in the shed. Let me show you that." 2 steps of footsteps then descended the stairs, and we watched the legs of both Molly and the woman walk towards a wooden structure not far from the house. I strained to hear the voices, peering as far as I dared out from under the house. The woman motioned for Molly to enter the shed, but as soon as she did, the woman slammed the door and padlocked it closed. In a loud voice, the woman shouted to the shed, "Your cousin will be pleased to see you." We gasped, looking around at each other, unsure of what to do. A car started, and we saw the woman drive away towards where we had come from. I scrambled out from under the house, the other girls close behind, and ran towards the shed. Inside, we heard the sounds of Molly struggling against the walls. "We don't have much time," Holly yelled, looking around for something to use. "There was an axe leaning up against the house," Zoe said frantically, before running back towards the house. After a few moments of anxious silence, Zoe ran back towards us with an axe in hand. "Stand back, Molly," Holly yelled as Zoe handed her the axe. I really wish I didn't use Molly and Holly. It's kind of annoying to read, but... Motioning for us all to stand back, Holly began swinging at the shed. Holly's swings became stronger, became stronger and more desperate as the seconds ticked by. Soon, Holly had created a big enough hole for Molly to crawl through. Dropping the axe, she ran backwards, yelling for Molly to get out. We helped Molly climb out of the hole before sprinting towards the back of the property, away from the road and the sound of approaching engines in the distance. We didn't stop running, climbing over fences, wading through creeks, until we reached another road. We squealed in excitement. On the side of the road there was a sign. "Only 5 kilometers to the nearest town," I exclaimed, pointing to the direction we were to head. Moving to the dense tree line, we ran as quickly as we dared, listening for any signs of being followed. Soon, we heard the dreaded sound, an engine, steadily approaching. "Get down," Holly whispered, dropping to the forest floor and covering herself in leaves and dead branches. We all followed suit and waited, terrified, praying that we would not be spotted. Soon, the source of the noise was upon us. I peeked out and watched an old man on a tractor roll past us. We all breathed a sigh of relief. "Where's Catherine?" Layla said shakily. A look of horror came on our faces. "She must have ran off when we were preoccupied with the shed," Zoe said, nervously pacing. "That could mean she knows which way she went. And if she knows, they do," I said, wringing my hands together. "We have to find that town more than ever now," Holly said. "Let's go." I nodded my head in agreement and we started running again, this time with more drive than before. I think this is the last... Oh, yeah, we're in the last part, guys. Then we move on after this. So, Holly. My bare feet against the rough forest floor with every stride. Bare feet against... Okay. With every stride I took. Glancing over to the other girls beside me, I noticed that some of them had become tired and were beginning to slow. I shouted words of encouragement and heard the laboured breaths of the other girls draw nearer. A bead of sweat trickled down my forehead before sliding onto my nose and dropping to the ground. With every step I took, I became even more determined to make it back, alive and safe. We ran for what seemed like an eternity, but eventually a small town came into view. As we moved closer, I motioned for the girls to slow. "We need to be careful," I said, once all the girls had come to a stop. "He could be there. He could have come a different way." "She's right," said Molly with a nod. "We should scope it out, make a plan. Figure out where we can get help," Ivy said, glancing towards the town. After a smaller discussion, we crept forward, edging as close to the tree line as we dared, squinting at the signs, trying to make out what they said. Very few cars littered the street, and only 4 people could be seen walking around. In the section I was looking at, small country houses in a field. Some small boys were kicking around a ball, while a group of older women chatted behind a fence. An old woman was gardening in her front yard, planting every colour of flowers, while a man, who I assumed was her husband, sat in a chair nearby reading a paper. A mother was pushing a Abby in a stroller, while a little girl skipped ahead of them. I couldn't help but grin at the mundane sights before me. From where she was standing, Zoe let out a gasp and pointed at a building in front of her. We ran towards her, looking at what she'd found. I looked towards a red brick building. It was a police station. "That's our place," I whispered, pinching myself, making sure I was not dreaming. I turned towards the girls. "Should we make a run for it?" I said. "I guess," Layla said, nodding her head. "Are you guys ready?" I asked. "Ready enough," Ivy said, putting herself in a running stance. After a few short moments, we broke out and ran towards the police station. As we drew closer, we began to yell for help and wave our arms. The next few hours were a blur. We were interviewed numerous times, transported to other stations, and interviewed some more. We identified the places we had been and described the man's appearance. The officers tried to put us at ease and gave us showers, fresh clothes, and food. Our parents were waiting for us, and after we had our last interview for the day, we all ran tearfully to our families. A few of the officers began tearing up at the emotional reunion. Little skipping girl is a murderer? Probably. I snuggled down under my covers and stared off into the darkness, the sounds of home lulling me to sleep. I awoke to the warm, sweet scent of pancakes wafting through the house. Walking into the kitchen, I couldn't help but smile. I was home. I was safe. I made it. Now there's an epilogue. How long is that? Okay, the epilogue is very short, so I will do the epilogue, but yeah. Ivy. Once upon a time, a big bad troll kidnapped 10 poor little princesses and forced them to play games, I said to my daughter, Susanna's deep blue eyes staring at me in awe. Games like you play. Fun, little innocent games, added Holly, like hide and seek. That's my favourite game, said Susanna, eyes even wider than before, but Mummy never lets me play it. A sad smile played upon my lips as I glanced around the room. My daughter's room, a place that was safe, and would always be safe. Anyway, I continued, the troll said only the princesses who won his games could escape, and the rest had to stay forever. But the princesses all wanted to escape, and so they made a very special plan. A plan to escape! Shouted Holly, jumping up to tickle Susanna. The two rolled around, Susanna struggling to escape Holly's strong grip. Giggles and squeals echoed around the small room. Aunt Holly, stop! Squealed Susanna as she squirmed in Holly's arms. Holly let go of the squirming girl and tucked her back under the covers after straightening up her pink cloud pajamas. I waited for Holly to sit back down before continuing the bedtime story. One day, when the evil troll wasn't looking, the princesses escaped and ran far away from the man, I said, before Susanna cut me off. The man? She questioned. I thought it was a troll. Holly shot me a look that was filled with concern and gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. Sorry, I meant the troll, I said after running my hands through my hair. Far away from the troll. But the troll followed them. He wanted to get them back, but the princesses were too clever and escaped and lived happily ever after, and even had little princesses of their very own. I finished, my mistake playing on my mind. That's a silly story, Mummy, Susanna said with a giggle. I stood up and planted a kiss on her forehead before backing out of the room. I wish it was, I whispered and switched off the light. We made it to the end of that. Okay, it wasn't great, I'm gonna be honest, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. I definitely have worse stories than that. But, yeah. We're opening up another thing. So, we have Liliana. We're going to read one of your stories because of the donation. So, we're going for short stories. Let's open that up. 12 parts. I'll pick one with the best looking name. And then, after I read that, we're going to move into the romance that I wrote when I was 14, despite never having contact with boys. So, that's gonna be great. Really edgy, but readable. Yeah, thanks. 14-year-old me loves it. Ooh, Love's Poison. We're reading Love's Poison by Liliana A.U. Darkness takes over the sky as my eyes burned. Everything is still around me. I have often wished for silence, to be alone. Fate has a terrible way of turning our wishes against us. The warmth of blood turns to a hand as I am thrust into memories of better times. I feel the strength of Amahul's hand wrapped around my own. Small and slender, the copper skin is marred by marks that I know are fresh. Are you okay? The soft voice rings out across the silent forest as I turn and look at my friend and secret lover. She gazes back, somehow seeing me and not seeing me at the same time. I reach over and slowly tap her on the shoulder, communicating with her. I worry about all your scars. What if they find us and give you more? Her copper hand leaves mine and trails along my skin till it rests on my cheek. They can beat me all they like, but they'll never stop me from seeing you, she laughs, and her opaque eyes shine into light. Of course, who would expect the mute and the blind to be sneaking around at night anyway? She smiles and can't help but blush. My skin must have given me away because... Amahul! You chose the cringiest thing? Well, I'm glad I chose the cringiest one then. Amahul laughed. We could always do more than sneak around. My face somehow gets hotter as another bell-like laugh echoes around the forest. Stop it! You know I get flustered easily. I know, but still, you're so cute when you blush. I know that you are. Her freckles lighten up as she, in turn, blushes, and it's my turn to laugh. I continue to lead her down a path, all the way to the glen where the moon shines the brightest. Silver streaks making Amahul's hair white and yellow gown glow. She's beautiful, like a goddess. Unable to help myself, I bring her towards me and press my lips to her own. She responds in kind. Let go of the prophet. I break away from my lover and am surprised to see one of her guards behind her, a tall, gleaming weapon. I know this will be my end. He's seen what I've done. Get on your knees, he points a spear at me. I drop, soaking my skirt in the grass. I feel a blade between my shoulder blades, and another guard comes up from behind me. You didn't think you could keep taking our profit, did you? You'll pay for touching her. Okay, Hale. It's an Arabic name. Got it. It was like the world stopped for those seconds. The guard jabbed his spear, but I never felt it touch me. No. Instead, I watched it shred through the skin of Hale. She fell into my arms, reaching for me, mouth open, wide, like her eyes. I felt it when she left this world, felt that light and warmth slip through my hands that were already coated in her blood. That seems a lot like stuff I write, but very nice. When did you write that story? Because most of mine were written at 14, so let's get... We're heading... Okay. Alright, we are moving on to a zombie book I read. This is the romance, a zombie romance called Hope Hotel. So, really good stuff here. This is the prologue. I'd like to say full marks English, advanced at 13. Nice, nice. Alright, I'm not going to read the whole thing like I did for Innocent Games, but I'm just going to read the best bits, but I will read the whole prologue so we can kind of get into what's going on. Prologue. Hell. I stared out the window at the anarchy below. Glass and debris littered the ground. Abandoned cars were strewn across the street, many still containing the hurriedly packed possessions of their owners. In the distance, columns of smoke spiraled up into the air, no doubt from abandoned houses burning. Below me, bodies shambled along, searching for their next meal, the bodies of friends, of neighbours, of strangers. Although we do not worry about her mental state. Look. I'm fine. My 14-year-old self is the issue here. I'm good. When I heard about that virus outbreak, unlike the lost souls below, I didn't try to run. I barricaded the doors to the lower floor of my small suburban home and moved all the food and essentials into my room upstairs, the only room in the house, besides the bathroom, which had a locking door. Since then, I've only had a few incidents of the dead attempting to break in, when I have accidentally attracted their attention. Luckily, they bore quickly, when they can no longer see, hear, or smell you. I watched them limp past every day, and every day, their numbers increased. I'm fine. Yeah, I am fine. Shh. The first few days... the words everyone says before they snap. The first few days were awful. The screams, the groans, the chaos, the sight of people being bitten and ripped to shreds and then coming back. I winced at the memories and drew the curtain. A comforting hand was placed on my shoulder from behind. Turning to face my best friend Mason, I gave him a sad smile. Mason was visiting me when the virus broke out. He decided to stay with me and hide, rather than take his chances on the road. He was so helpful when I was barricading the lower floor, but whenever I looked at him, I was riddled with guilt, because he was here with me, rather than with his family. We're gonna make it, he said, giving my shoulder a squeeze. My eyes fell to the floor. I hope so, I whispered back. I used to think hell was only for the dead, but I'm pretty sure I'm there already. The edge. Alright, this is chapter 1, Hope. What the movie is named... not the movie. The book is named after. I will say though, this was based off a dream that I had. As a lot of my stories were based on dreams that I had. So, I think actually Innocent Games was also based on a dream I had. But yeah, not really too relevant, but fun fact. 14-year-old me had some twisted dreams. Did you have a 3? Go fish. Did you have a queen? Damn, Mason shouted, jumping up. How do you always know? I flashed him a smile, about to taunt him, but was cut off by a noise from downstairs. Mason's outburst had attracted one of the dead. Thumps and groans echoed around the house as it beat against the door. Whoops, Mason whispered, lying onto the carpet, running his hands through his dark brown hair. I crept towards the window and peered down through a small opening in the curtains. The corpse of an old man staggered at our front door, beating against it with more strength than he would have possessed in life, leaving smears of grime and blood wherever he touched. I sighed, backing away from the window, lying down beside Mason. You don't always have to look, Arvy, he said, turning his head towards me. Sometimes it's better if you don't. I closed my eyes, the gory images of the outbreak racing through my head. I'm sorry, I whispered. Mason gave my hand a reassuring squeeze before sitting back up. Here's my queen, he said, sliding the card across to me. How about Nace, I asked with a grin. Go fish, he said smugly, his green eyes glinting at me and smirking as we picked up a card from the middle. You win again, Mason said, flatly dropping his cards. Fancy another round, I joked, poking his leg. No, he muttered. Let's not make it 6 in a row. I picked up the old cards and put them back in their box. It's really a shame the apocalypse is so boring, I laughed, placing the card of box on my dresser. The card of box? Sorry, box of cards. Apparently I can't speak and I can't write. So, walking towards the window, I grabbed a chair and staring at the mess outside the window. The corpse of the old man had gotten bored sometime during our 3rd round of Go Fish, and now he was nowhere to be seen. I looked back at Mason, making sure he was all right before returning my gaze to the window. In the far distance, I saw a body limping along a lot faster than usual. As it drew closer, I noticed that it seemed to be carrying something in its arms. As it almost jogged in this direction, Mason, I said, turning towards him, you might want to see this. He rose from the floor with a confused look on his face and walked towards me. What is it? He said, leaning on the back of my chair. I pointed towards the body, squinting in an attempt to see more. As it came closer, it passed the corpse. I gasped as I saw the corpse begin to shamble after I gasped as I saw the corpse. Oh my goodness. Give me a second. We can't speak anymore. I've lost the ability to read. Alright. I gasped as I saw the corpse begin to stumble after what I could just make out to be a woman, who was now moving faster than ever before. They're alive! I whispered, getting up from my chair. I turned towards my bedroom door and unlocked it before running down the stairs, Mason close behind. I ran into the kitchen and grabbed 2 knives, passing one to Mason. I hurried towards the lounge that barricaded the front door and began to pull it out of the way. With Mason's help, I managed to lift the lounge away from the door in time to see the corpse grab the woman from behind and sink its filthy teeth into her left shoulder. The woman let out an anguished scream and dropped the bundle she had been holding so close. The corpse knocked the woman to the ground, ripping open her abdomen, her insides spilling out onto the hot tarmac, and began to viciously consume her. Mason turned away, knowing that there was no way we could save her. I started to turn when I saw movement that came from the woman's bundle. Mason, I whispered, causing him to turn back towards me. We leaned our heads on the door and saw a tiny girl emerge from the bundle and toddle around confused. Without a word, Mason tore out of the house towards the girl, running faster than I'd ever seen him run before. He scooped her up in his big arms and started back towards the house, the corpse now hot on his tail. He bounded through the front door, yelling for me to slam it behind him. He carefully placed the scared girl down on the floor before running to help me put the lounge back. Against the door, we listened for the thumps and wails coming from the other side. When we were satisfied with our barricade, we quietly ran upstairs and into my room, locking the door behind us. Mason placed the girl onto my bed and tucked in her little body. Should we try talking to her? Mason whispered as he backed away from the bed. Start small, I said. She's just watched her mother die. Walking to the bedside, I sat down. Hello, I said with a smile. My name's Arvy. This is Mason. What's your name? The little girl's lip quivered and she hid her face behind the covers. It's all right, Mason said softly. It's going to be all right. The little girl's face slowly peered out from behind the sheet and looked at us with teary blue eyes. Mummy, the girl said. Her tears began to spill out of her eyes. Her cries echoed through the house, causing much more of the dead to take interest and begin beating against the door. We attempted to shush her for a long time before she finally began to calm down. The noise coming from below was frighteningly loud. I looked through the window and saw that there were half a dozen corpses beating on the walls and doors of the house. Sorry, she whispered, breaking down the tense silence that engulfed the room. Mason lifted his head out of his hands to look at her. For what? He said, sitting on the edge of the bed. For making the scary monsters come, she said, staring back at him. That's not your fault, I said, moving to the other side of the bed. These things happen. Mummy's gone now, she said, sniffing and wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, I said, patting her shoulder. Mason got up and grabbed a packet of biscuits from our dwindling food pile and gave them to her. We watched her eat in silence before attempting to talk to her again. So, Mason asked, taking the rubbish away. What's your name? The little girl sniffed before answering us. Hope, she said meekly. Hope, I said, testing out the word. That's a nice name. How old are you, Hope? Mason said, returning to the bedside. 4, she said, before snuggling down and closing her sleepy eyes. Let's see. There's a whole nother section of Go Fish. We're skipping over Go Fish. We don't need to read another game of Go Fish. Oh, no, it's Snap this time. I flipped over my card. 6. Mason flipped over his. 7. I turned over another card. 7. Snap, I said loudly. That's the gist of what's going on. I stared at the corpses stumbling below me, searching for something alive, something to consume. My gaze turned into a glare as visions of them tearing people apart filtered through my mind. I pulled the curtains close as I noticed the haggard corpse of a teenage girl curiously staring at me from across the road. How is it today? He asked as he moved close to me. More than usual, I whispered, motioning for him to follow me into a corner, away from where Hope was quietly playing with one of my old dolls. Mason nodded, eyes to the floor, contemplating my words before opening his mouth to speak. We're running low on food, he said, glancing towards our small collection of food. But we have no certainty that we'll find anything out there. If we find something, we'll be safer than here. We have to take our chance, I said, gravely pointing at Hope, for her sake. Mason leaned on the wall. And where do you suggest we go, Arvy? He said, snapping his eyebrow at me. The next town over. Do you remember before this happened? They had just finished constructing a big... The next town over. Remember before this happened, they had just finished constructing a big hotel. No one had moved in yet. It's only half an hour away, I said hopefully, as I watched the look of skepticism on Mason's face. That might actually work, he said. Taking the backpacks out of my wardrobe, I placed items in them. I placed food in one and filled the other 2 with miscellaneous supplies like matches, medicine, bandages, and sentimental belongings. Probably the pack of cards that we've mentioned 50,000 times already. We carried down all the bags and items we thought we'd need, almost filling the boot of the car. We walked up to my room one last time, taking a final look around. My eyes flickered over the walls, taking in my home, my safe place for the final time. I began to look back at the room before I heard Hope's little voice burst out from beside me. Wait, she said as she ran to my dresser and grabbed the deck of cards. How could I forget those? I laughed as she made her way back to my side and placed the cards in my hand. Ready to go now, she said with certainty, meeting my eyes with her serious gaze. I nodded to her and began making my way down the stairs with her by my side. They make a plan that takes forever, and they decide that they're just going to walk there. So they're walking towards a hotel that's going to take half an hour to get there. I stepped on the road and walked around the back of the car. Oh, never mind, they drove there. Don't listen to me. Coming to a stop next to Mason, I realised there was indeed someone inside, but they were not alive. They didn't drive there. It's just another car. Blood smeared on the driver's window as the corpse in the front seat began beating their decaying fists against the glass, letting out a desperate, hungry groan. I stepped away from the driver's door, pulling on the handle of the rear doors. The door clicked, opened the corpses, causing the corpses' cries to grow louder and desperate. What are you doing? Mason said in a hushed tone. Ignoring his words, I shut the door. I ran my fingers along the side of the car until I reached the boot. My fingers grasped the cold metal as I pulled the boot open. My face lit up. It was filled with supplies, food, medicine, clothes. Running back, I opened the bags and began cramming everything inside. And they keep going and keep going and keep going. And can you finally get to the hotel, please? The journey to the hotel was taking longer than expected. Yeah, no way. It's taken like 50 chapters. We're finally there. Took us forever. I pulled the glass door open. It had been left unlocked in the rush to escape. We hurriedly moved all our things into a pile in the lobby of the hotel. When the car was empty and locked, we were all safe inside. Mason and I moved one of the lobby's couches against the door as an extra precaution. The lobby was beautiful. Exquisite paintings hung on the cream walls and crystal chandeliers hung from the ornate ceilings. Lounges were placed around tables in a room filled with books on dark wood bookshelves. I smiled. We had found the perfect place. Walking over to the grand reception desk, I ran my fingers along the smooth wood. A cabinet of keys hung behind the counter, all numbered and all in place. I took the key to the penthouse, what I assumed was the safest floor of the building. Reading one of the hotel's notices, I saw the hotel was built on renewable energy sources. I squealed at the thought of hot water. Convenient. I walked towards the lift in the back of the lobby, testing to see if the renewable energy worked on that too. My face lit up as the door let out a ding and opened. Hope stood in the lift, holding the door open, as Mason and I squeezed all of our belongings into the lift. They go upstairs to the penthouse. They set up. It's really good. But another character gets introduced soon, and I want to skip to that because that's when the cringe starts happening. They go around the hotel, listing all of the rooms. So we're skipping over that because no. I watched bodies swarm the roads, weaving through the streets, and allies passing the base of the hotel. The corpses knocked into the walls of the surrounding buildings as they stumbled past, searching for their next meal. My hand tensed around the short fabric. I guess it was short fabric was what it meant to be. My hand tensed around the short fabric of the curtains as I pulled it closed, slowly hiding the view of the decaying bodies. I'm glad we're here and not where those bad things can get us, Hope said, her fingers squeezing my free hand. I ran my fingers through my hair, closing my eyes and wondering what to do. Are you okay up here? I whispered, giving her a little squeeze. She said, shifting a little in my lap. Noticing us talking, Mason went from where he was reading and came to sit near us. Are you lonely up here? He asked to speak to her. Hope sat in my lap, angling herself towards him. Little bit, she said quietly. Would you like to come help me next time? I asked and gave her a bounce. Yes, she said. Do you miss your mummy? I said, the guilt of not addressing this sooner rippling through me. I sniffled a tear and wiped it from the corner of my eye. Yes, I cry a lot, but you're my new mummy and daddy, so it'll be okay. She's moving on quick. It's all good. Mason leaned against the window, his tight shirt showing the muscles in his back as he hunched over, gazing at the mess below. He bit his lip and stared down at the city. Letting out a sigh. Glancing at Hope, quietly playing in the corner of the room, I stood up from the chair and moved to his side. I looked down the street where around 6 bodies of the dead lay strewn across the road. Mason and I watched in silence, the 6 bodies lying unmoving as if they had just been attacked by someone. I placed my hand on Mason's forearm, causing him to turn his focused gaze towards me. It looked like someone had attacked them, I whispered, keeping my voice low so he wouldn't worry. Mason nodded and walked to the elevator doors. You stay here with her. If there is someone out there, I'll find out. I watched the doors close and ran back to the window, waiting for him to emerge at the bottom. Mason forced his way out of the building, disappearing from my sight as he clambered inside. I waited, anxious, unmoving, for him to emerge. With each second that passed, a weight pressed harder and harder against my heart. Seconds passed, minutes passed. It felt like years before the door of the opposite building edged open. I breathed a sigh of relief, seeing Mason emerge with another person. He was safe. My heart leapt. I thought that finding others would be nothing but a fantasy. But now, seeing another person for the first time, anything seemed possible. Even though they just saw 2 other people, one of them is a kid that they brought. No, it's the first time, it's fine. I rushed towards the lift, calling for Hope to follow. Standing behind Hope in the lift, I was almost jumping with anticipation meeting this person. When the doors pinged open, I raced to the front desk. Hope not far behind. We waited in silence until the doors of the hotel opened. Mason entering next to a young guy, covered in blood and dressed in jeans and a tight t-shirt, exposing his muscles. He held a bloody baseball bat over his left shoulder and had a strong air about him, as if he was in control of his surroundings. This is Dan, Mason said as he pushed the large couch back in place. I looked at Dan, assessing him with my eyes. He stood a good head above Mason and was well built. Deep blue stared back at me from beneath a mop of chestnut brown hair. "And you are?" he said playfully, his voice deep and enchanting. I stared back at him blankly, my trance only being broken as he began moving towards me. I stuttered, unable to gather my words. "Sorry, this is the first time we've done this," Mason said, walking to the front desk. I gathered myself as Mason stood straight, ready to hopefully redeem myself. "I'm Arvy," I said with new confidence before motioning behind me where Hope was. "And this is Hope." Dan nodded his head before speaking again. "She your kid?" "No," Hope whispered, hiding her face behind my arm. I gave my hand and squeezed it as Mason spoke. "We rescued her from a small cluster of the dead that were too busy with her mother to get her." A grave look crossed Dan's face, his eyes giving Hope a knowing glance before placing a hand on the front desk. "Say I want to stay here. I can fight, go on runs, build. What would it take? You've got a nice place here and plenty of space." I nodded at him and turned around to grab the key to room 105, the first room on the floor below ours. "You can stay," Mason said, crossing his arms, "but there'll be a few things we need to discuss first." "Fair enough," Dan said, walking to one of the couches in the foyer and taking a seat. "Let's talk." Walking beside Mason to the opposite couch, I clutched the cold keys to his room tight in my hand. The soft couch enveloped me as I sat down, Hope nestling beside me, staring at Dan suspiciously. "We have some rules," I began after a short moment of silence. "You stay, you work. We all have our jobs to live. You understand?" Dan nodded, and I continued to speak. "We want to stay safe. If a horde passes through, we have 3 important rules. No light, no sound, no movement at the windows." Dan leaned forward and cut off my speech. You have light?" His eyes sparkling. The corner of my mouth formed into a smile. "You have no idea." "Are you okay, Hope?" I said, glancing in her direction. "Yes," she said, continuing to play with her doll. Her fingers curled around the doll, making her walk and dance. A smile played along my lips, happy she was okay. I cast my mind back to Dan's face, how it lit up when I told him about the hotel, the renewable energy, the farm on the roof. There's a farm on the roof? I must have skipped over that. The farm on the roof. He was ecstatic when we settled him into his room and came out, beaming after he had a hot shower. I was ready to finally have someone else around. It made everything seem possible again. Mason was down in Dan's room creating plans for a wall out the front to protect the flimsy glass walls and to keep out the dead. Mason was happy to have some help, someone he could relate to better than me. I sat in the chair, anticipating our first night eating dinner with someone else and contemplating what the future held for our small group. Are we finally at the place? My footfalls echoed through the empty hall as one of the lower floors of the hotel. I went up to this place when I was feeling overwhelmed or needed some space. The thick walls, meters above where the dead lurked below, made me feel safe, eased my mind, and finally let me sleep at night. I walked into one of the stairwells, running my fingers along the smooth white walls as I descended the stairs. My mind wandered aimlessly as I walked, eventually realizing I'd ended up in the lobby. Standing at a distance, I watched the dead stumble past through the glass doors. A shiver crawled down my spine, causing goosebumps to raise hairs on the back of my neck. As I watched groups of corpses pass through, I felt a large hand lay itself on my shoulder. I moved as quickly as I dared, without drawing attention to myself, away from whatever touched me. Turning around and realizing it was only Dan, a tense breath left my lips. Motioning for me to follow him, he walked into the lift before holding the door open for me. I know what's coming, so I'm... Oh no, oh no, oh no. "Sorry I scared you," he said with a laugh as he leaned on the lift's wall. I shook my head and punched his arm playfully. "I'll get you back," I laughed, a grin spreading across my face. "I doubt you will," Dan said, giving me a wink. Silence returned again, but this time it was soft, almost comforting. I gazed into Dan's eyes, thinking back to when I had first met him. He cleaned up so well, despite the fact that he was a masterpiece when he was covered in dirt. It's okay. He ran his fingers through his hair, causing butterflies to parade in my stomach. It didn't help that the haircut I gave him made him look even better. I could feel the tension in the air as we walked towards his hotel room to chat, like we often did in the afternoons. When we were seated there, Dan broke the silence. Mason and I have almost finished the plans for the wall. We should be able to start building soon. What's coming? The cringe is coming, that's what's coming. I'm so sorry, I said, guilty at the fact that I missed putting Hope to bed. I got a bit carried away and lost track of time. It's fine, Mason said flatly, not even making eye contact with me. I raised my eyebrow. I knew Mason well enough to know something was wrong. What's up? I asked, placing my hand on his shoulder. He shook me off. Nothing. As I lay in my bed, I wondered what he could possibly be upset about. I decided maybe he just had a bad day. It couldn't have been my fault. Good morning, I called to Mason, who had just emerged into the penthouse's common room. His hair was ruffled, hanging at a weird angle around his face. Hope sat on one of the wooden chairs, swinging her legs. Did you sleep bad? She asked, as she bit down on one of our last muesli bars. Mason mumbled something, moving to the table and sitting down before placing his head in his hand. I placed a gentle hand on his back, feeling the soft rise and fall of his shallow breaths. You should probably get some sleep. This place is pretty quiet without many people. Plus, the wall can wait, I said, giving his shoulder a soft squeeze. Dan, Hope and I will manage just fine. Mason mumbled something else under his breath before standing up and facing me. I buried my face into his neck as he wrapped his big arms around me. Don't forget me in this crazy world. Just don't, he whispered into my ear before releasing me and practically stumbling back into his bedroom. I smiled. Mason was so strange when he was tired. You want to come down today? I said, turning to face Hope. She shook her head. I want to play with my dolly. Giving her a hug, I walked into the elevator. I punched in the bottom for Dan's floor. Okay, before this, I just want to remind you guys that I was 14 when I wrote this, okay? I no longer hold any responsibility for the things that I wrote. Okay. I punched in the button for Dan's floor, hoping that someone around this place was willing to talk, or at least just sit with me in silence. Walking up to his door, I gave a short knock before waiting in silence, wondering if he was awake. Soon, I was able to hear footfalls behind the door, and a groggy-looking Dan appeared. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were asleep, I said, backing away. Nah, it's fine, he said, his voice deep and husky from having just woken up. He opened the door fully and motioned for me to come inside. Curling my legs up underneath me, I snuggled down in the lounge opposite him. He ran his hands through his hair before we began to talk. The conversation bounced back and forwards for hours until it was late in the afternoon. I stood up to move my plate of slightly mushy orange peels from the oranges we had appropriated from the fruit bowl in the kitchen. After months? Months? No way oranges are still there for months, myself. You're stupid. Anyway, 14-year-old Matisse doesn't belong to 20-year-olds yet. Yeah, no. Two different people. Okay. As I returned, I noticed Dan stood up and was waiting for me, leaning against one of the walls. Is everything all right? I asked, the confusion evident in my voice. I just need to do something. Something I've been wanting to do for a while. I opened my mouth to ask him what he was doing before I managed to get out any words. His soft lips met mine. I slowly relaxed into his embrace, wrapping my arms around him and moving my lips to the rhythm of his. He ran his hand up my side, causing shivers to plummet down my spine, igniting fireworks in my stomach. After a minute, we pulled our lips apart, not separating our embrace. I stared deep into his eyes, which were full of excitement. I'm glad you feel the same way, he said, his lips morphing into a grin. So am I said, running my fingertips on his forearm. Before I knew what happened, he picked me up. I wrapped my legs around his waist, biting my lip to ease the crazy grin spreading on my face. Ah! Our lips met once again, but this time with far more force and desperation than before. I hate my 14-year-old self. As the shivers ran down the back of my neck, I wondered how, in this crazy, crazy world, something like this could ever happen. I stared out of the window at the expanse of buildings and houses on the horizon, grateful we had made it this far, and for people who had come in my life. Closing my eyes, I thought back to the kisses I shared with Dan. My smile widening at the thought. Suddenly, Mason's voice broke my thoughts. Do you have any idea how long you were away today? He said, raising his voice. In case you've forgotten, we have a kid we have to take care of. We? Not just me. Oh my. Hope, while you two are off gallivanting around like the world hasn't gone to hell, it's not fair, Avi. It's not fair. I stared at him, his sudden outburst catching me off guard. Suddenly, the butterflies that had been fluttering around in my stomach had dissolved into puddles of guilt. You can't even say anything, he said, turning away from me and walking towards his room. I collapsed onto the floor, my heart being pulled in 2 directions, my mind unsure of which path to take. Great. Oh. There's only 1 chapter left because this was finished, like I stopped writing this halfway through, so this is where it's going to end. I don't remember what happened, but the sound of crashing from outside my room woke me from my dreams, reality seeping in with each noise made. Rubbing my eyes, I rose from my bed, squinting at myself in the mirror before moving to investigate the noises. Stop spamming. I will have to fix my Nightbot. I don't mind. You can spam. It's okay. I cannot be here for this. Sorry, Mum. In the common area of the penthouse, Mason was madly sifting through drawers and cupboards, placing seemingly random items into a backpack. Suddenly another voice sounded from around the corner. You ready to go? It was Dan! Mason mumbled a reply before beginning to make his way out of the room. Wait! I called after them, moving towards where they were standing. Where are you going? Hormone-filled 14-year-old Matisse. Shh, she's horrible. Please refrain from using foul language. Who's using... Sorry. I will fix my bots. They're just warning everyone. Just ignore them. I'll fix them after this stream. We're going on a run, Dan said, smirking at me from inside the elevator. I sighed, placing my hand on Mason's shoulder, only to be passive-aggressively shaken off. And when were you going to tell me? I asked, crossing my arms. Mason, continuing into the elevator, pressed the button. I wasn't, he replied, because apparently we don't tell each other things anymore. I stared at the doors of the lift, dumbfounded at his immaturity. Nightbot is rough, can be a tad sensitive. Yeah. Well, that's where it ended. So, like, I was planning on writing, like, the rest of it, but, like, I gave up on Wattpad, even though, like, I had a good time, I was going well, but I don't know, I guess year 11 and 12 happened and I decided that I wasn't an author anymore. Happy to lend assistance. I think I can do it. I just, yeah, I just need to fix my bots. But, yeah, that's where it ended. I know that I had planned for her to get with Mason in the end, because he was my favourite, but I'm kind of glad I didn't keep on writing, because the fact that this exists on the internet is so horrible. So horrible. Oh. I think that's most of what I have. Oh, that's painful. That one sequence, the elevator sequence. Oh. Makes me want to die every time I read it. What is this? I'm finding stories that I didn't even know I had. What? Okay, we're reading a historical fiction now. It's called Love Story. This book is set in the 1700s. Angeline and Alexander are of high nobility. Oh no, is this another romance? Are you kidding me? You move from one creative art to another with your cosplaying job. You know what? This is a whole lot less embarrassing. Okay. I'm reading another romance. I hope it's not as spicy as the last one. Chapter 1, Nightmare. Once upon a time, there was a princess as radiant as the sun. Her name was Angeline. As a child, she had a special bond with Alexander, the prince of a neighbouring country. One day, when she was 14 and he was 16, the king and queen arranged a marriage for them. This was the time when people got married at that age. The wedding was to happen in 3 months. In the 2nd month of the engagement, Angeline's father fell ill and died. Her mother postponed the wedding to 6 months away. Soon, a king of a country far, far away came to the queen and asked her to marry him. Little did the queen know that the family of the king and the family of Alexander had an ancient blood feud. The queen soon married this king. Angeline was devastated because her mother had moved on so quickly. One night she was crying in her bedroom and her mother came in and told her she was forbidden to see Alexander, especially forbidden to marry him. She was ecstatic because she knew that Alexander would also be there. Okay, what that means I don't know. Her stepfather also knew that Alexander would be there. Just as she was about to leave, the stepfather punched her in the stomach, then forcibly dragged her up the stairs and locked her in her room. She tried the window and found that it was locked. Angeline looked down and saw that she was meters off the ground. She walked across the room and ran through the window. She dragged herself off the ground with cuts bleeding and stained her white dress. A year later, after their marriage news came, Angeline's stepfather had been murdered by Alexander's father. Angeline and Alexander returned to the castle where the queen lived, and they lived happily ever after. Although, when he punched her, she could never have children. Really? This is less embarrassing? Well, so that was, it was all a dream sequence, because that was a nightmare. So, this is chapter 2, Edmund. Angeline awoke from her nightmarish dream to the steady moans of her younger brother in the next room. She ran into his room and knelt beside him. Edmund! Edmund, are you okay? She said. Edmund gave a long, slow moan in reply. Edmund, do you want me to call Mother? She said. I'm fine. There is no need to call Mother, groaned Edmund. Okay, I shall leave, but do call me if you need me, said Angeline. I will, replied Edmund. Angeline returned to her room and went back to sleep. The next day went smoothly. Angeline helped her mother go through the guest list as the servants set up for the ball that was to take place in the evening. Early afternoon, Angeline decided to prepare herself for the ball. She went to Edmund's room to see if he needed help with his bow tie. He often did, for he was only 11 years old. When she got to his room, she found him sprawled on the floor. She lifted him onto his bed and ran to her mother. Her mother knew what she was there for just by the look on her face. Her mother sent for Emily, spelled E-M-I-L-E, her favourite servant, to send for the kingdom's doctor. When the doctor arrived, he went to Edmund's bedroom and did a couple of tests. He came out, looked Angeline's mother in the eyes and said, I'm sorry, milady. I think he has till tomorrow morning. Angeline's mother gasped. Emily, show the doctor out. Then, could you please cancel the ball? Yes, miss, said Emily as she hurried the doctor out. Angeline's mother went down into the cellar, as she always did when she was sorrowful, leaving Angeline to care for herself. Are we going to find Alexander yet? Oh, this is where Alexander comes in. Angeline raced through the forest, running faster and faster with the fear of what she had left behind, willing her legs to move and her heart to pump. Her dress, which was one of the finest ball gowns, tearing as it caught on passing branches. Her hair had come out of the diamond clasps that held it, and was flying wildly behind her as she raced through the forest. Angeline finally knew where she was when she slowed down. She was at the river, where she had first met Alexander. Memories came flooding back to her from the first time they met, sitting by herself near the river. The boy who appeared from out behind a tree. Getting such a fright, she pushed the poor boy head first into the shallows. How she wished Alexander was with her now, how her heart ached for him. Angeline sat, staring at the beauty of the place, the water lilies, the trees, with such despair that tears failed to come. Before she knew what was happening, she was swept to her feet and found herself locked in an embrace. Dear, sweet Alexander, is that you? She inquired, although she already knew the answer. "It is, my darling," he replied. "Something dreadful has happened back at home," she said. "What has happened, my love?" asked Alexander. "'Tis Edmund, my brother. He has fallen ill again. But this time, not just slightly sick. The poor boy has a relapse, and mother does not think he will pull through this time," cried Angeline. "Mother is drowning her sorrows, and I have no one to comfort me." "You have me. I shall comfort you as long as it is possible, my precious gem," said Alexander lovingly. He raised her chin and put his mouth to hers. Alexander's heart raced as it did whenever they kissed. Angeline wrapped her arms around Alexander, pulling him close to her. With her lips still touching, she whispered, "I love you." After he did this, the kisses were more intense and trailed down her neck and back to her mouth. Her arms were so strong, she felt safe, protected, loved. His mouth was soft and warm against hers, and her hair brushed his forehead as he kissed her. Eventually, they had to pull away. I hate this so much. This was the worst idea for a life that I've ever had. I should have taken this to my grave. I love you and I always will. I will care for you, and only until the day I die if you are ever sorrowful, and I will comfort you. I will help you through this. You are my heart, my soul, my love. Thank you. I cannot put into words how much I love you and how grateful I am to you. I would go to the ends of the earth with you, she said, embracing him and burying her head in his shoulder. When the sun was completely set, Alexander walked Angeline home. "Shall I see you tomorrow?" asked Angeline. "I shall see you by the river," replied Angeline, before he kissed her forehead and walked away. That's it. I'm done. I'm done with Wattpad. We're done. No more. No more of that. We've had a good run. But, I don't think I ever want to read the stuff I wrote when I was 14 again. I certainly want to forget it. I don't know which is worse. Which did you think was worse? Angeline or the elevator from Hope Hotel? Because I really can't decide. Both of them make me want to curl up and die. Anyway, now I'm sufficiently scarred. We're gonna end. I have a bunch of uni stuff to do later today, which is great. But to end, we're going to raid someone. Haha! The first raid that I've ever done. I should be ending everything with a raid, but I'm stupid, so haven't done it yet. But when we raid, just like put some snail emojis in the chat or something. Snails are great. So we are going to this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to follow if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys next time.